Hello all. In this portion of the presentation, we will be looking at the Wilmot Creek Neighborhood Sustainability Guidelines. Before starting, I would like to present myself. My name is Charles Gosselin-Giguère, Project Manager at Urban Equation. Urban Equation is a sustainability consultant responsible for this guideline. The purpose of the presentation today is to provide the audience with an overview of the guidelines content and also to share what to expect while reviewing the document. Starting off here with the table of contents for an overview, the document is organized through 6 sections as well as one appendix. We will go through each of these sections in the following slide and the content within each of these sections. The first section is an introductory section. It has content relative to the vision for a sustainable Clarington. As well, this section highlights the purpose of the document, which is to guide the review and evaluation process in order to align the development, future development with the municipal vision and goals. There's also mention of interpretation and implementation of this guideline. Moving to section 2, that is focused on One Planet Living. So in this section, we highlight the need for sustainable planning and why this is important. We also talk about the One Planet Living framework, what it consists of. In brief, the One Planet Living framework, as we see on the right, is organized through 10 guiding principles and delivers holistic sustainability, reaching from more a social impact, like principles similar to health and happiness, equity, culture and community, as well as ecological sustainability, themes like water, land use, travel and transport, as we can see on the right. There's a last section that does mention how One Planet Living will be used throughout the document. Essentially, it is an organizing framework and it helps organize the content throughout the guideline. Section 3 is focused on physical context within the Wilmot neighborhood. So here, this brief section does mention the site location as well as key features, including the proximity to the lake, natural features that exist on the site, the existing community that is living close by, as well as transport opportunities. Section 4 is dedicated to policy context. In this section, we look at 3 main policy documents that will influence the guideline and that function within the guideline. The first being the secondary plan. So there's a direct link between the guideline and the secondary plan. The second document that is pointed to in this section is the Municipality of Clarington's official plan. And lastly, the Priority Green from 2015 that has standards for residential development that prioritize sustainability. So these 3 documents are the key documents that constitute the policy context. Next section, section 5, where we'll spend a bit more time here during the presentation to talk through, is dedicated to principles, topics, and strategies. First part of this section briefly outlines the structure that will follow throughout this section. This structure we see on the right side essentially we have organized through a hierarchy. At the top, we see 10 principles. Those are indicated, as we'll see further on in the presentation, with squared logos. We have 10 of those, and they're based on One Planet Living principles. The second line we see here with the 28 topics with the circle icons. In third place, we see then around 180 strategies. Those we will see are organized with pictures, images, as the example here suggests. And lastly, more in a chart format, we have 110 requirements, some of them being mandatory and the others voluntary. So we will look at how these different levels of information are interwoven within the document. So first off, just quick indicator of these 10 principles, as well as the different topics that are highlighted throughout the document. So as we see here with the square icons, we have the principles on top with the related topic underneath. So for health and happiness, we see throughout the document will be discussed public spaces, parks and open spaces, as well as outdoor comfort. For equity and local economy, we have affordable housing, mix of housing types and sizes, as well as universal and accessible design. The fourth principle is culture and community, where we will discuss public art, as well as community and recreational facilities. Local and sustainable food is the fourth principle here, and has two topics: local food production, as well as access to healthy food. We'll continue this list here with the second slide, where we see the topics for land use and nature, so ecological health, natural heritage, tree canopy, and lastly, light pollution reduction. In the sustainable water principle, we have stormwater, landscaping, and efficiency in buildings. And on the far right of the slide, travel and transport. We include topics such as walkability, bikeability, complete streets, vehicle parking, and compact development. Last slide here for these principles and topics. We have materials and products, so recycled, reclaimed materials, sustainable materials. In the zero waste principle, we have occupancy, collection, and storage, as well as construction, diversion, and collection. On the right, the last principle is zero carbon energy. There's three topics here: building energy performance, renewable energy, and lastly, building resilience. So all those principles and topics are organized through spreads throughout the document. And we have an example here of one spread, and we will look at how it is composed with the following slides. So first we see here on top, this banner indicates the One Planet Living principle. In this case, we have equity and local economy. There's icons, as you can see, the square icons on top here, as well as a description of this principle underneath the title. Next, we have those topics that we've just previously seen in the slides before. In this spread, there's three topics for affordable housing, mix of housing types and sizes, and universal and accessible design. Those three topics have also associated logos in a circle. The strategies, as I've said before, are accompanied with images, pictures, as well as titles that go with that strategy. So in this spread, we have a total of 3 times 4, so a total of 12 strategies, as we can see here in this slide. Additional strategies are also suggested to pursue higher performance, or also to inspire the development of this community. So those are listed on the left side of the strategy pictures that we just saw. In these spreads, there's also the intent of the topic itself. So this can be read to understand the purpose of this topic and its importance for sustainable development. Last element here to point in this spread for section 5 are the applicable requirements. So those are number and letter codes that we will see later on refer to another section of the document, section 6, where a full listing of these requirements are located. So actually pursuing with section 6 itself, the implementation and requirements section, this is an extract of what these pages can look like. And similarly, we will look at the components of this section as we did previously. So first, again, the One Planet Living principle on top with the logo as well as the title of the principle. We see next again with the circle pictogram as well as the title. We have the topics here on this portion of the page. We have the associated requirement number that we did see also in section 5. So that number has the letters for the principle, HH being here health and happiness, as well as a number related to the requirement itself. In this first column, we see the mandatory requirements. So those are asked for all of the development and are the minimum performance to follow. In this case, we see here a requirement for access for the first one, as well as one for visibility and safety for the second requirement. In the following column, we see the voluntary requirements. So those are encouraged, but not mandatory, although the development as a whole will have to follow at least 3 of these voluntary requirements at a minimum. Moving on to the right space of the page, we have check marks here that indicate if the requirement applies to, in this case, public spaces, and the following column if this requirement applies to the private spaces. So in some cases, the requirement applies to both. In some other cases, it applies to one or the other. Great. Few last slides here just to mention the interrelationship between section 5 and section 6. So section 5, mostly where we get those strategies and the intent. We have a portion of what we've seen in section 5 on the left, and section 6, where the requirements themselves are listed. Here we have them in the right portion of the screen. We will just show 3 other examples of how these 2 sections combine together and can be understood. So here for land use and nature, we have an important topic related to natural heritage. So again, The portion on the left from section 5 indicates different strategies that are possible, while the right space of the page here, section 6, indicates requirements that need to be achieved and are based mostly on performance and targets. So in this case, for natural heritage, we have requirements from number 3 here to number 5 that are related to naturalization, ecological integrity, and connections as well. Another important topic here is stormwater within the sustainable water principle. So we see examples on the left space of strategies like bioswales, water retention, on-street rain gardens or off-street rain gardens. So those are a few of the possible strategies. On the right side, we have the requirement themselves that are targeting paved areas. We see on the top here for the first one, water quality for the second, quantity for the third, and lastly, facility design features for the fourth requirement. Lastly, an example from travel and transport. Again, few examples of strategies. We have the images here for public space facing entries, sidewalks, small blocks, boardwalk, pedestrian pathways, and those will be implemented through the requirements on the right side that address functional entries, block lengths, as well as sidewalk provisions. So those are only a few examples, but hopefully this little presentation was useful to understand the structure and the general content of the Wilmot Creek Neighborhood Sustainability Guidelines. Thank you for listening.